This episode has been brought to you by Uganda. There can you from Outgo. Scoobity boobity boobity bap boo.
Will you please listen up to what I have to say? Cause we're in for some old-fashioned wrestling today. Not the violent, oily opposery kind, but the kind that involves pins and thumbs you will find. Cause it's thumb wrestling time. Yes, it's thumb wrestling time. So we will discuss pros and cons, faults and pluses of all your favorite movies. And we will ponder the merits of cinema in this WrestleMania. Cause it's thumb wrestling time. Yes, it's thumb wrestling time. Yes, it's thumb wrestling time.
Hello, pot people. That is from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Welcome to a brand new episode of Thumb Wrestling, in which I, Ruud Vos, every time talk to a new podcast about a certain film about which we do not agree. Welcome to episode number K19, The Widowmaker. Yeah, episode table 19. And in case you haven't noticed yet, yes, we're doing the old switcheroo to English again. Because we have a very British guest. Although I do believe she grew up in Nantes in France. But that's beside the point. What isn't beside the point is that I'll be talking to Emma Holmes, a comedian / storyteller, but she's also an organizer. She organizes many an improv night and also many comedy nights, especially around the area of her hometown of Wageningen. And I will be appearing at one of these next month, at the 11th of November, at Emma's comedy night at Café Loburg, which is nice. Most of these nights she hosts herself, and she does so excellently because Emma is a very funny and very warm raconteur. And she also organizes and hosts Wageningen storytelling nights at Thuis Wageningen. Also nights that are great fun. And she's also convinced me to do some storytelling there. And I liked it, so I've returned a couple of times, and the next time I'll be there will be on the 31st of October, Halloween, at a theme show called The Haunted House Scare Show. And not just me, my girlfriend Anouk will be joining me there to play some murder ballads. But so much for self-promotion. If you like this podcast you're about to listen to, you might also want to check Emma's new podcast called The Suitcase. Episode 1, called LGBTQI+, has been released on the 11th of October on YouTube. I will put a link to that in the description. Emma is always great to chat with, and so I invited her over on the 17th of September to have a very friendly disagreement about Kingsman, The Secret Service, the movie from 2014 directed by Matthew Vaughn, based on the graphic novel The Secret Service by Mark Millar. The Kingsman, The Secret Service, is the story of street hustler Eggsy, played by Taron Egerton. He is told by super spy Harry Hard, played by Colin Firth, that his dead father also used to be a spy for a non-governmental intelligence outfit called the Kingsmen, which is situated in a tailor shop. And Eggsy can be a spy too. He goes into training, he outshines his upper-class peers, but ultimately fails because he won't shoot his puppy. It's a pug. Who could shoot a pug? Meanwhile, Harry is tracking a plot by billionaire Valentine, played by Samuel L. Jackson, who wants to do a culling to defeat overpopulation. Valentine kills Harry, and Eggsy has to team up with his former trainer and the girl who beat him getting a spot in the Kingsmen to stop Valentine. And loads of supposedly hilarious violence ensues. As you can maybe hear, the film left me a bit disappointed. I had always felt that Matthew Vaughn was a much better and much smarter version of Guy Ritchie, but this film made me think twice. So you can guess that I was very glad when Emma told me that she was very willing to stick up for Kingsman, The Secret Service. And now off to the chat.
3, 2, 1, fight!
I've already press record on the...
Oh, so I can just talk to this and then just be rude.
Sorry?
So, call me.
Yeah.
Call me, maybe. That's the way. Just recording me non-stop. Just testing if you can hear that through the microphone. I watched it this morning, so I'm ready.
You're still stoked from watching it?
I am, yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I have to say, I told you I was worried that I wouldn't like it again.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say I still like it. Still.
Easily?
Yeah, easily. Such a random movie.
Random? Why random?
Maybe random's not the right word. It was, what I really like about it is it's unpredictable.
Right.
There's something that I don't feel like we see anymore in most movies, is that it goes a completely different direction than what you're expecting.
Yeah, it does follow loads of conventions of the James Bond movies, but it does take a weird spin with them.
It does, yeah. No, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's not a parody, but there are elements where it's kind of.
I would say that is very much a parody, as a very loving parody, because it is a
maybe that has been a description.
Movie,
it's very funny, and like they kind of like there's just like certain moments where they really are taking, pardon my French, the piss out of kind of spy movies.
You can say piss. No,
good.
So, what if you would have to give a very tiny review of this film?
Like a review, or a description.
A description / review.
For me, what I really like about it is one of the things that I think action films lack, especially American action films nowadays, is just all explosions and no story. This is a very simple story, but there's a story there.
Yeah.
It's also like it has this very comic book feature, which I really like.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Guy Ritchie movies for that reason too.
Yeah.
This kind of graphic
like
bubble. Even Aladdin was. I mean, the colors at least were attractive.
Right.
Aladdin, I quite enjoyed Aladdin. There's certain parts of it more than others. But it connected with me. I thought it was very, very funny. I really enjoyed the parody of traditional spy movies, like James Bond and so on. In contrast to this one, I just thought it was a good story. And I also I just connected with this. I was gripped by it. I thought the colours were really bright, and I just always felt throughout it that I was gripped by the story, wanted to know what happens next.
Yeah. But yeah, what was the first time you watched it?
When I saw this movie for the first time.
The first time, I don't remember. I think it was actually when it came out. I watched it maybe some months, when it came out on DVD, basically.
Yeah, you didn't see it in cinema?
I didn't see it in the cinema. I saw the second one in the cinema. But the first one I saw at home, and I was really looking forward to it. I'd seen the trailer.
Yeah.
I was excited. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I watched it at home, and I really enjoyed it. Right. And then I don't remember. I realize now, having watched it this morning.
Yeah.
I didn't remember most of the story. I just remember the feeling of having enjoyed it.
Yeah. And that worked the second time, and it was as unpredictable as the first time.
It kind of was.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes things would happen, and you'd be like, yeah, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that. But I find it. I think it's a really good movie. I really enjoyed it.
Cool. Yeah, no, for me, first time, because I went into it with very big expectations, because I was quite a big fan of Matthew Vaughn.
So it's changed.
It's changed a bit. It's become, a bit more critical of him now. But I liked his first film, Layer Cake, when that came out, with Daniel Craig in the lead. And after that, he'd done Stardust, which I thought was very great. He'd done Kick-Ass, which I really liked. He'd done X-Men First Class.
That was also...
which is probably my favourite X-Men film.
It is a very good X-Men film.
Yeah.
And then he did The Debt as well, which I didn't know was...
Sorry?
Have you seen The Debt?
Fact check Norris.
Fact check Norris here. The 2010 film The Debt was not directed by Matthew Vaughn. It was directed by director John Madden of Shakespeare in Love fame. It was, however, written by Matthew Vaughn together with Jane Goldman and Peter Strawn. Fact check Norris out. haven't seen that.
Oh, it's a great movie as well. I really enjoyed that. It's a thriller.
Yeah,
I
should
think.
watch it.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Right, yeah. Going back to his earlier, better now. So yeah, then I went into Kingsman, which I think I didn't see in the cinema. I'm pretty sure I watched it at home afterwards. But somehow it just didn't click for me for the first time with Matthew Vaughn.
Ooh.
I just didn't have the same feeling of enjoyment. Like everything that I expected of his films wasn't there, but it was so amped up that it just sort of made me turn off.
Ooh, interesting.
It started in the very first scenes, and I had the same feeling. Now I rewatched it. Like camera flies into the Middle Eastern building, and it looks kind of cool, but also so artificially made that I just go,
oh, that's interesting, because
it's not really it for me.
I feel like that's kind of half the enjoyment of the movie, is the fact that
It's over the top.
well, it feels a little bit like it kind of feels comic booky, like it feels like a kind of like a graphic novel, but brought to life.
It is a graphic novel brought to life.
Right,
Yeah.
I mean, I know this from you actually the other day,
yeah.
but I like the fact that it kind of it does look artificial,
Right.
but that also kind of brings me into what feels like a world that's similar to mine, but
Yeah.
slightly parallel, like not quite. Which also means that everything that is ridiculous that happens
Yeah.
is kind of accepted, because it's not quite my world.
Yeah.
It's a slightly different world.
But still uses real people.
It does use real people.
Like Iggy Azalea and Barack Obama is in
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Barack Obama, I've forgotten about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
But
because
it
it's
has some
graphic.
very over the top moments, like
Hugely.
near the ending, exploding head.
The exploding
That
head
is
is
very-
fabulous. It's so ridiculous. I mean,
By that time, I was so lost. I just thought,
you were like,
fuck this.
you were gone at that point. I mean, I did not see the idea of basically what is kind of a musical fireworks display
Yeah.
linked to blowing up hundreds of people's heads.
Yeah, celebrities who
Celebrities.
brought to the idea.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. I mean, I would never have seen it coming. It was such a weird way of portraying it.
Yeah.
Such a weird way of portraying it. I remember this morning when I was watching it, we were sitting there, and my partner says, that bit. I'd forgotten about that part. And then suddenly, the heads start to go off exploding. Because it is actually, I mean, I don't like violent movies.
I was very much aware that was in the film before I watched it again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This one had stuck out to you? I mean, it should have stuck out to me. It didn't, though.
But also a bit because of irritation the first time, and the second time I just thought, it
it's
doesn't
coming.
irritate me as much anymore, but I just so don't care.
I wonder if it's just because you had such high expectations, because
It must be a very big part of it. Yeah, well, normally I don't feel that bothered by it as with this one. Normally I can just sort of tone it down, like, let's see what they have.
Yeah.
And, for instance, when I go to see a new Coen Brothers film, for a very big part, I have huge expectations, way higher than with Matthew Vaughn. But I can also always appreciate them on a certain level.
So
And
something's
with this
definitely
one,
happened.
This one felt really as a disappointment.
Okay.
While, for instance, Hail Caesar probably isn't my favourite Coen Brothers film, but I still had so much enjoyment watching it. Or
Right.
with Jim Jarmusch's latest, The Dead Don't Die, loads of people thought that was a huge disappointment. I still laughed quite a lot, and I don't like all of the story in there, but the stuff that I did like,
You liked a lot.
I liked very much. Yeah.
Okay.
And I still felt like they were on the top of their game in a certain aspect of the film. Maybe
Yeah.
not story-wise, but there are some things where they do shine all the way through. And with Matthew Vaughn, maybe this time I just didn't feel that way.
It didn't click at all,
No,
right? I'm getting
not
this
that way,
distinct
yeah.
impression.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that the people that I've heard who are most enthusiastic about it are people who've had no expectations, like they weren't really aware of Matthew Vaughn's body of work, like they've seen some of his films but maybe not realise it's the same guy as this one.
Yeah.
And they just went into the film and just thought, I expected nothing of it, but this is great compared to having no expectations, and I can understand that.
Well, I
Because
didn't.
it is very surprising, like you said.
Yeah, I didn't have expectations from Matthew Vaughn, but I had seen the trailer before
Yeah.
it came out, and I really liked the look of it.
Yeah.
I enjoy a good
I
spy
like
movie.
the trailer as well.
So that had set up expectations, but they certainly weren't, I think, as sky high as anyone who, goes there to see what the director has done or the producer
Yeah.
has done. So yeah, I had some expectations, but I don't think they were anywhere near as high as yours. They were more like, it could be a great movie, it could be not, who knows.
I don't know if, I wouldn't say if my expectations were supremely high, because I also don't try not to have that too much, like, oh, I'm going to so much enjoy this, like getting so stoked with the film, because I've been disappointed before.
You've been let down.
Yeah, exactly. And, I put up a defensive wall.
I've been hurt. I would not let them hurt me again.
Exactly.
Alright, I see.
I'm having an old friend for dinner.
In preparation for the podcast, I also read the graphic novel it's based on.
Right,
Secret
okay.
Service, written by Mark Millar, but also plotted together with Matthew Vaughn, the director of this film.
No way, okay.
Miller was already working on it, then Matthew Vaughn got wind. He'd already filmed Kick-Ass, which was also based on Millar's work.
Yeah.
And then Matthew Vaughn thought, this is way more interesting than doing a sequel to First Class, which he was working on, Days of Future Past. But I must say that most of the stuff in the film is an improvement from the graphic novel.
Is an improvement.
Yeah.
Okay. So was it did you like the graphic novel?
In some ways, but mostly the things that are also thematized in the film, like high culture versus low culture, like uppity gentlemen versus
Eggsy.
people from the streets.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there are some nice touches, but there are two things that are in the graphic novel that they've changed for the film, which I would say also are, to me, a bit of a hindrance in enjoying the film.
Ooh, go on.
First one, you have the scene with the newspapers.
Yes.
Yeah, so Harry Hart tells Eggsy, these are the newspaper clippings, these are the front pages of the day after every time I've saved the world. And now you have, there's nothing on there about those events. It's all about just celebrity gossip, because it's all about not having the public know that something big happened. And it's not about getting the recognition, it's about doing a service for other people. And in the film, I sort of expected that in the end it would circle back to that. But the ending, the way the plot goes, makes it nigh on impossible, with people fighting everywhere and stuff like that. There are people killed because of that. You see a double-decker bus going through London and mowing over people.
Yeah.
People are killed because of that stuff. So next day in the papers, it won't say celebrity gossip.
No, that's true.
But in the book, there's a different ending which does make it possible for those newspapers to be there, and that sort of ties it up way better. That very interesting notion of this is what you're doing it for, not for the recognition, not for the flashiness and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That to me made it way more, a way better message.
Okay. I mean, I have to ask how it got to that, because I can't see a way in which...
In the graphic novel, they've changed the frequency so people don't kill each other or want to kill each other, but they all have sex together. So for 19 minutes long, there is world peace, according to the graphic novel, which I also would say doesn't really work, because some people, when they're having sex,
it's
they're
not
doing
peaceful.
No, it's not peaceful at all. But hey, that's a different
Okay,
thing.
there's a big difference in, like,
And
the
it's also sort of a
outcome.
forced rape. So
It doesn't sound... There's a lot of things there that we could unpack. It's really interesting that you talk about the ending, not having that kind of... I'm going to use the word satisfying, which is just inappropriate right now, but kind of satisfying ending of being pulled back together. Because one of the things I wrote down is I like the fact that the story came full circle.
Right.
Just my circle was it had a different starting point to yours.
Yeah.
Because...
But it's also about the personal growth of Eggsy. He would...
Exactly.
I think it would be better if he wanted to strive for that thing.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, for me, that was kind of such a... It was kind of a minor. I mean, I know it's meant to be a big point in the movie, but it felt kind of a minor point. I felt like when Harry Hart is in the pub for the first time and kind of basically beats up the guys who've been harassing Eggsy. I feel like at that moment you kind of see Eggsy click going, I haven't got anything else to lose, I want to be like this guy. And then to see that come full circle and the scene start again, and this time he comes back to protect his mum rather than from the same group of people, rather than Harry protecting him. I thought that was a really nice kind of like pulled back together again. Although, I mean, 19 minutes of sex would have been interesting.
For within the film universe, that sort of works, but it's sort of a thing they throw up where I expect that's going to do something more, and it just didn't.
Yes, that's true. It did kind of, you're like, okay, it was like, here's a lesson for you. And then it kind of got forgotten a little bit. That was kind of...
But there was a second point.
The second point.
That didn't make the movie, and that I think is a bit more important in a way, because in the graphic novel, the bad guy was called Professor Arnold, so that's different from the film. In the film, you have Professor Arnold, but that's Mark Hamill.
I was like, it's a different guy. It's not the baddie.
He's not the baddie. But in the book, Professor Arnold is the one of Dr. Arnold is the one who goes around kidnapping people, celebrities. But he only kidnaps celebrities from stuff he likes. So he kidnaps Mark Hamill. First scene was him trying to kidnap Mark Hamill, being stopped by one of the secret agents, but the secret agent makes a mistake and dies together with Mark Hamill.
So he ends up killing Mark Hamill.
Yeah, exactly.
So that kind of gone down well.
Yeah. So that's a different thing. But so there is that to it. But also the people he kidnaps aren't going for the crazy crackpot theory about that the Earth is warming up and it's a way to protect itself, like an organism, like raising its temperature. And that we should have a big culling.
Casual.
Just kill
it's
1/6 of the population and everything's going to be fine.
But which is the story of Avengers as well.
In the book, they just go, everyone hates that theory, basically, except for William Shatner.
Well, there we are.
That's a good joke. But then he has to kidnap everyone and put them into cells while the world is ending, basically.
Okay.
And once the celebrities get freed, they help in going against the bad guy. While in the film, real people like President Barack Obama, go for the theory, go along with it willingly, have their heads blown up because of it.
Which is kind of an interesting fate. It's kind of appropriate. It's like, the best decision you made.
If you're going to have people going along with that, why not fictionalize them instead of having the real people there? That's sort of iffy territory for me. But even more, that they would go along with it is already quite a big stretch, even though in the original... It's way more. It feels way more natural that they wouldn't want to go along.
But why would you think that fictionalizing these people? I guess at the time it was kind of. Why would that make it? Why? I mean, the idea that it would go along with it is
stretch of the imagination. If it's fictional presidents.
But I mean the crime is so ridiculous. I mean, I feel that kind of also kind of helps the fact that The idea behind it, like where what's it called, Valentine's coming from.
But it makes it confusing for me. Like, do you want us to take this theory seriously as a good theory or not? Because if Barack Obama says it's a good theory, then there must be something.
There's got to be something behind it. Okay.
But then you hear it and you go, fuck, no, this is stupid.
Okay, I see where you're coming from. I'm not sure. I feel that's kind of the difference between, like, where do you see the line of, like, parody and then where do you see the line of, like, action spy movie. I feel like for most action spy movies, the aim is to be... It's kind of a relatively serious kind of story. Like, we got to find the things out and save the world. And the kind of parody is like, these idiots went along with it. Like, it's like, don't blame me.
I drink your milkshake.
Like, I was trying to think of what is the genre I would classify it in. And I couldn't think of whether it would be a comedy or an action movie. I mean, it's both.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
I would say mostly a comedy, but...
You say mostly a comedy. See, for me, it felt very action-related. I thought it was very funny. I had good parts of comedy, but is it what I would expect from a traditional comedy movie? Probably not. Also, one of the reasons I probably find it as funny.
Right.
So I'm kind of, I'm not really sure where I lie on that one.
But do you need to put it in that box? Because it's clearly both.
Well, the thing is, it's a very violent movie.
Yeah.
And I'm not particularly keen on violent movies. Generally, I kind of watch them and go, oh, here we go again. Like, oh, great, they've been shot. I mean, I'm not a fan of Tarantino at all.
Right.
I don't get the fascination with him. Lots of blood, lots of cutting of heads. I don't find it a particularly, interesting thing in movies. I think it's overused.
Yeah.
But this one is extremely violent.
But it's also very bloodless.
It's super bloodless. I don't know if you see very little blood. Like, you see bits and pieces when people are shot to the head.
CGI blood.
Kind of off it goes.
Screen, yeah.
But I thought it was kind of interesting how they created this movie that is so full of violence, so little blood, and also that someone like me who doesn't really enjoy violent movies actually found it really entertaining to watch. That sounds terrible, but I found it really entertaining to watch this movie. So I'm trying to work out kind of in my own head, like, why does that have that feeling to it? And I mean, going back to your original point about whether they should have fictionalized the characters, it certainly didn't bother me. I mean, to be fair, there was the part, like, Barack Obama in particular, I was like, it's like, how dare you touch my Barack Obama?
One thing that I liked better the second time around, when I watched it, because I have that as well, Taron Egerton. First time I watched it, I just couldn't get past his ridiculous suits and stuff like that.
His suits are a bit
yeah,
but he's great in it.
He's very great in this,
and that's like one of the first times that he's really, for someone who I'd never heard of, I really enjoyed him in it.
Yeah. The first time I just couldn't get past this stupid cap, and
the cap is very stupid.
He sort of looks like a schoolboy with those clothes on.
I wrote down, actually, I can't remember where it is. I think really like Taron Egerton as an actor. It says underneath, he grows on you in this movie. Because I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, this is just, he's a bit of an asshole, really.
Yeah.
And then the further along in the movie, the more I liked him. And this time when I watched it, I liked him throughout the whole thing. So obviously he grows on you.
Also written, he has loads of good characteristics, like the way he is, just how he is to different people, and not holding too big grudges against people who don't deserve it.
No.
Just against those guys who are really abusive and who are really bad to him in spy school. But the other ones he does get along with eventually. Yeah. Basically.
I think that's the thing, is like, I think what he portrays is kind of this idea of just being a human.
Yeah.
Like, kind of human traits. And I feel like Kingsman, like, the Kingsmen are trying to show you what it's like, how you should be, a gentleman human. Or, like, how you should be a gentleman. That is what they consider to be human. Yeah. And I feel like he shows you this very other side of humanity. Exactly. This kind of, like, this very kind of emotional side.
Exactly.
But, like, one that I think everyone kind of relates to.
Yeah. But that's deep in him, and in the end he still does loads of James Bond shit, which is...
Oh, yeah, hugely.
Yeah.
The end part as well, I was like, whoa, here he goes, flippy, flippy, flippy. Off he went.
Yeah, and then in the end with the princess...
That's one of my favourite things. It's so ridiculous. I mean, that's like one of those moments you're like, oh, he's such a boy. Like, he just, like, when he picks up the champagne...
Yeah.
And then, like, the way he's talking, you're like... it's this new kind of like, and now I can be confident about things. Yeah. That one's just like that feels to me like full parody.
There was a weird thing between the first time and the second time I watched it, because I remembered that there was a very saucy joke in there about the princess says to him, he asks her, he tells her, like, I've never kissed a princess before. And then she says, we can do more than kissing if you save the world. Yeah. And then you have Mr. Valentine just says something.
And he has to go in.
And then she says, if you save the world, we can do it in the asshole. And it wasn't there the first time. The second time I watched it, it wasn't there anymore.
Right? I remember that.
Yeah. And I... looked it up, and they actually caught it from the cut it from the Blu-ray version.
Okay, so that's what it was.
Yeah.
We've been watching that because I also remember
There's even a very jarring cut there. Like there's a sound and it just cut off.
Yes, yeah. I thought at first it was I was streaming it, and I thought that the stream had gone funny.
Yeah.
And he just starts talking again. It was kind of almost like a glitch in an old PC movie, a PC game. And I was like, okay, it's a bit weird. And now I remember it.
It falls into place.
Yeah, I was like, I remember that joke.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, yeah. So that was cut out of it. That wasn't allowed anymore. No more
sodomy.
No more sodomy. Too much sodomy in that movie.
I like the My Fair Lady reference.
I thought that was brilliant.
That's maybe my favourite part of the film.
That is one of the best jokes I think I've heard. Just him going on about all these things that he should Harry talking to
places no
like all these lists of like like in My Fair Lady. He's like like that.
That wasn't expected, but yeah, that was good.
What did you think of Samuel L. Jackson as the villain?
He clearly has fun with the role.
Yes.
I think he could have been more being like completely in charge of a room when he's orating, like he was in Pulp Fiction, for instance. He commands the room there, and especially his speech to Barack Obama. You don't know it's Barack Obama who's sitting.
Yeah, because it kind of zooms out
until it's zoomed out. But that speech just didn't have that good an impact. On me there. Like he didn't seem that convincing in that speech there.
In that one.
But I like his lisp, I like his joy and
I thought he always wears one colour. I feel that's something kind of he wears more or less like every time you see him he's in a different colour.
Right.
Which is just kind of one of those fanatical OCD things that you enjoy in a villain.
Yeah.
You're like, okay. Like there really is like it is a caricature of a villain.
Exactly. But it's also a nice switch around because loads of times you have American films with a British villain. Now you have a British film with an American villain.
I know we're always considered the villains.
Yeah.
All the posh people. It's like one of two options.
I think that's because of acting styles. Because America is way more in the method. Stanislavski style of acting, like immersing yourself into what you're portraying on screen and going for full naturalism.
Yeah.
While British is way more technical, way more theatrical.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It is a lot more. It's a lot more about theatre, if that makes sense. Like you said, it's more dramatic. It's kind of theatre is for theatre. Yeah. Whereas a lot of the American actors you see, or when it first started out, it was a lot more like trying to be as realistic to the role as possible. Yeah, I mean, like I thought he played a good. I kind of liked him in this because he's so, like you said, actually, he so easily dominates a room. Yeah. But he also tends to dominate movies, not necessarily on purpose, but like just the nature of who he is.
But he also can be very theatrical.
He can be. I've seen him do amazing roles. Like, don't get me wrong, but he has a tendency to. It's kind of like. You see him, you're like, it's a Samuel L. Jackson movie. And this one, he was very much the villain, he was very much part of it, but I didn't feel like he overwhelmed everything else.
Right.
And what I also liked about him, which obviously is not a new topic currently, considering that Avengers Endgame came out recently enough, was the whole idea of him being a villain who's technically fighting for good. Yeah. Which is kind of, I think at the time wasn't so such a common idea.
Give people a good motivation to do bad stuff.
So I thought that was kind of it was kind of interesting, especially now, especially with all these climate change talks that you're listening and you're like, there's gonna be someone who started a fan page.
That's what should put us over the edge. Like, I can see where it's coming from.
I think that's always scary, isn't it? I mean, if that was the case,
but,
maybe
it's going for the very easy, very. Quick solution, like something a schoolboy might yell out.
That's true.
And so that sort of makes clear that it's maybe a bit more for an audience of 14-year-old boys. Possibly.
I mean, I think that if you're doing something that is cartoonish, I feel the what you're fighting for has to be kind of a little bit more ridiculous. It's not a ridiculous thing to fight for, but it's kind of easy enough to understand. While still being kind of, I guess, complex enough for people to go, okay, there's something. It's not like he just wants to own the world. Like, there's some reason behind it.
Have you seen Watchmen?
No, not seen Watchmen.
Okay, That makes it go. Do you really hate spoilers? Do you want to watch Watchmen?
I keep wanting to watch Watchmen, and I never get round to it. So you can probably spoil it for me. I will probably forget by the time I leave here.
Cool. So in the plot in Watchmen, superheroes are killed, but the mastermind behind it is one of the superheroes that has a murder attempt against him, who is supposedly the smartest man in the world.
Oh, I see.
And he's devised a plan, like, if there's a big threat against all of humanity, we can finally unite and get this Cold War thrown out of the window.
Okay.
In the graphic novel, it was a big alien that attacked, and in the film, they've transferred that to one of the superheroes who actually has loads of big powers, who is like a god person. Like, make him the enemy of all mankind, so mankind can unite against him, common threat. So there's also a very good motivation to do, actually, just kill a couple of million people, but then to save billions is the idea.
It's a common theme throughout, like, superhero, well, like, throughout, like, villains, I think, is that you do either have the... Because, I mean, like, in the old James Bond movies, it was like, okay, how ridiculous can I take over the world? Like, that's... Yeah, I'm reading all the James Bond books currently as well. It's exactly the same premise. It's like, what is the most ridiculous way that I can take over the world?
Yeah.
Sometimes through mass murders, sometimes through other things.
Yeah.
And
or
then,
just get rich. Loads of the time, the villain just wants to get super rich.
That's true.
Goldfinger just wants to rob Fort Knox.
Yes, exactly. Don't you spoil that, because I'm like 50 pages away from the end of that book.
Really?
Yeah, I'm super. He's like literally.
I'm not talking about the film. So I'm not
the
sure
book I find the book even more interesting.
Cool.
I didn't think I would.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you want to read something that is incredibly sexist, incredibly racist, and of course homophobic, it's a fantastic book.
Yeah.
Because did you know that Pussy Galore is a lesbian?
I didn't know that.
No, that shocked me.
Right.
I was reading it the other day, and then Pussy Galore walks in. I was like, I'd forgotten she was in Goldfinger. She's such an iconic character in movies.
Yeah, a lot of vagina.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, it's yeah.
If you go through spy parodies.
Exactly. And as she walks in, and she kind of walks in like full on leather, and she runs basically a all women's gang in New York.
Yeah.
And she's one of these, one of the 6 criminals that they've brought together to try and rob Fort Knox.
Right.
And it happens to be that he says, Bond is like, oh, her. And Goldfinger's like, ain't gonna happen, mate. She is definitely into the other side.
Yeah.
And he was like, darn. Which is quite a shocker from the movie.
Shaken, not stirred.
Have I ruined the structure of your podcast? I feel like we've just been chatting about things.
That is the structure of my podcast.
Okay,
That's
excellent.
supposed to be the structure of my podcast.
Because it certainly felt like when I listened that it was slightly more structured than what I'm currently
I
offering
will
you.
always add a bit more structure in the end.
Excellent. I like podcasts that meander, to be fair. I think it's more like you feel like you're listening in on part of a conversation.
Yeah, like 2 people actually having.
Yeah, like you're sitting down having a chat. And
normally
making
a chat.
coffee.
Yeah, like you're part of that, like an extra in there, like witnessing 2 old friends or something like that.
Just like kind of chatting about stuff.
Yeah.
Also, it's very hard to talk about movies and not talk about other movies. I realize that. Like I said to you before this podcast starts, I'm the worst person to have on here because for the longest time I was not into movies. I had no concentration, basically.
Right.
And a movie was 2 hours long, and that demanded a huge amount of focus.
Yeah. Understandable.
I have recently and more like doing a lot kind of more like I guess physical work or things that are quite demanding. Yeah.
But is it easier for you in a cinema when all the attention is directed to the screen?
So the thing with cinemas have always worked for me because it's also an event.
Yeah.
Like you're going there and it's part of like you.
There's a ritual.
It's a ritual to it. Like sitting down at home, I start watching a movie and I'm like, I should be doing this, or I could be doing this. Or
Also, the lights are on, so you start looking around.
You start looking around. You start seeing things that are kind of you're like, that or this boy, this face. I also love a good spy movie as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think so. Yeah. Yeah,
Also,
definitely.
the James Bond movies.
Yes, I always enjoy the James Bond movies. One of the reasons I think I've gone away from spy movies more recently is they lack story. I mean, if you watch Mission Impossible, it's just like, okay, so the
I do like
helicopter
the
blew
Mission
up.
Impossible as one, but that's just because it's a big action.
If you want to watch it just for action, fantastic. But I like spy movies that have a bit of story to it. I watched Tinker Tailor
Soldier Spy, and I
fantastic movie.
prefer that a lot to the current James Bond movies.
Agreed. I thought it was a fantastic spy movie.
I read the book before I saw the film.
There's a book. I'll have to get that one.
You have to read the whole trilogy. It's fantastic.
Oh, right.
It's
That's a
Tinker
great...
Tailor Soldier Spy, then there's The Honourable Schoolboy.
Okay.
The third one is called Smiley's People.
Smiley's People.
Yeah. The way John le Carre writes, he also used to be a spy. Like, from James Bond.
Ian Fleming. Yeah.
He was a spy during World War II. But the stories he's based James Bond on are basically the things he's heard from like military spies who were more like action adventure kind of spies. Or he's placed it in another circumstance than the war.
Yeah.
In war you can have that flashy stuff.
Indeed.
More easily than when there's a Cold War going on.
True.
I think.
But yeah, I think probably.
John le Carre is a proper spy, and it's all about intrigue, all about just thinking 3 ways around a thing. So you have a guy who is the lead, who is not flashy at all. He's sitting in front of a jigsaw puzzle, picks up every piece, looks at every angle before he puts it anywhere. Maybe puts it down again and other pieces before he finally makes a big puzzle of it. But it's so good.
Oh man, I'm going to look forward to this.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
It's also nice that Colin Firth is in both.
I know, I feel like I do have... I must have a thing. My mother is obsessed with Colin Firth. So I wonder whether it's genetic. No, I do love a good spy movie, and I love a good spy parody movie. And it's interesting, because I have to admit...
Mark Strong is also in both. I just remembered.
Oh, so he is, yeah. Mark Strong's in it as well. And then, what's the name of the funny little guy? I forget his name.
The funny little guy.
I don't remember which one he is. He's in a lot of things, and he's one of those people that you've seen a lot of movies and always forget who they are. Little British...
Toby Jones.
Is it Toby Jones, that's it, yes, exactly. I also think he's great in most things I see with him.
He's fantastic.
He's a wonderful actor. But the thing with Kingsman that's kind of interesting is that and I agree with you, I don't think it really falls in parody...
Right.
...or in like traditional spy movie, like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. It's definitely more on parody side, without doubt.
But in the end, it all just goes in the direction of a regular Bond movie.
It does, yeah. I mean, it even ends with him getting the girl, which all Bond movies do. They float away on some mattress in the sea.
Yeah. Gets a fuck a princess in the arse.
Well, I mean, apparently not in the Blu-ray version. So,
well, they don't need that.
I mean, to be fair, she does turn over, which poor Mark Strong gets a whole face full of.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's definitely close to a parody, but there's a bit more. I think it's like you said, it's a loving parody. I think that's where there might be a difference.
Most parodies are loving parodies. You have to love
so.
something to be able to do a good parody of it, I think.
Yeah, I think
Otherwise,
so.
it goes more in the way of satire and picks it apart.
Yeah, good point. So yeah, no,
but that's also not a very straight line. You can have elements of parody and
that's true.
Satire in it.
It has, to be fair to Kingsman, it has quite an incredible cast.
Yeah.
As far as like A-star actors go, missing out Taron Egerton, who was new at the time, and the younger crew.
Yeah.
The older actors are all pretty big names. I mean, you have Michael Caine, you have Colin Firth, you have Samuel L. Jackson. Mark Strong is also one of those actors who kind of pops up everywhere.
Yeah.
I was quite kind of like, okay.
And Jack Davenport is the spy who gets cut in half.
He is, isn't he? Yeah. So he's also in there.
Yeah. There's also an interesting thing with Michael Caine. Because he used to play a spy in the 60s, 70s, all the way through the 90s, called Harry Palmer, who was also sort of an anti-James Bond, like a working-class version of James Bond. Yeah. Like more of a common man, no nonsense.
He dies a common man as well in this movie. Did you notice that?
Yeah, well, he
goes commoner when he gets poisoned.
You fuck him.
I was like, there you are.
I'm a cockney.
Exactly, yeah.
Gentlemen, you can fight in here. This is the war room.
What did you think about the fight scenes, how they were filmed?
First time around, I thought they were very cool, but also I'd seen it done before in Kick-Ass.
Right, okay.
He films them the same in Kick-Ass, so he's already set that style in there. The violence seemed more impactful because it was also newer, but I think there was more blood in there.
In Kick-Ass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in this one, it was more cartoony, more bloodless, and so
not quite.
Feels like it has very little consequences.
Okay, so that's interesting because I haven't seen Kick-Ass, so that for me was I love the way the fight scene, like everything from the way that how kind of
very long camera,
but also like how the switch kind of follows you around, like with it, like whatever the person does, like you kind of follow that movement, and the movements are over the top to say the least. Like no one does a backflip when they're fighting, really. Yeah, but I love the way it was filmed. Now, I don't have the experience of Kick-Ass before, so that's probably one of the reasons I don't have... for me, that was really a big part. For you, it was a big part. But I really enjoyed the fight scene, so that also makes it entertaining to watch. Yeah. The choreography of it.
But also therein, you have this tone thing that didn't do it for me. Especially in the church scene.
Oh, wait, say that again?
The church scene.
Yeah, no,
there you have a thing with the violence with tone, where I think this is mismatched.
Ooh, go on. Okay, right. We have to delve into this church scene because when I talk about how much I enjoyed the movie because it's surprising, this is one of those moments.
Right. So it's set up at this is a hate church. These people are racist, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. So even they are. So they are clearly bad people. Deserve to die is a bit of a stretch. Bit harsh, yeah. So I will.
There's fuck education.
The thing I wrote down when I was watching it is that given that these hate mongers are mostly just fucking idiots, placing Harry in that church with his killing skills is very nasty.
Ooh, okay.
It's very much of a sort of a revenge fantasy thing that takes it a bit further than it needs to. Like it's made very joyous and stuff like that, how he kills people in very loads of different ways, and that does have a fun element to it, and I also get taken in by that a bit, but also feels like these are still sort of innocent people. They just yell about how they hate everyone, but they've not really killed any black people or anything. Probably they're just bark and no bite.
We assume they're all talk and no action.
Yeah, if you'd seen like news reports of suspected killings by that church beforehand, for instance,
you would feel less.
Then it would have been more justified.
I thought it was an interesting choice. If you were to do it differently, like who would you pick? If you had to do the same scene, right, like a mass murder where Harry kills everyone, more or less, like who would you choose instead?
Instead of this?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because this is my problem. Like, because I'm thinking about it. Like, okay, how do you choose a group of people which, you want to be kind of like a little bit against?
Yeah, but these are so easy to shit on because you see them on the news and it's quite obvious for loads of people that they are with like signs like God hates fags and stuff like that. That was also a very big thing when this film came out. Clearly, these are people that you won't like, probably. But do they warrant being killed by a super spy in horrible ways? It's just But who would you want? Who would be good enough?
Because if we assume that Valentine is choosing the people, right?
Yeah. In the comics, they use drug dealers, people who willingly ruin other people's lives just for profit.
Okay, that's a good choice of...
I would say that is an improvement, even though even in the book, the Gary character is not even called Eggsy.
He's called Gary.
Just Gary. He questions that, like, they are not all that bad. There's more of a side to them. They do this also because they are poor. But then he goes to Colombia, where a guy gets super rich from doing that, and he willingly kills him and all his cronies. No, he kills all his cronies and then arrests him and pulls him in. So I think that would be a better solution to it.
Because at the end of the day, we're trying to justify the idea, like the choice of character from. I mean, it's Valentine who's chosen these people, right? And if you look from his perspective, I assume it just must be exceedingly convenient. Yeah. Because they're all going to be in one place, one blocked off place. Yeah. Very kind of memorable.
But one of your protagonists is put in there, even against his will, killing all those people, but still, it would be better if you could at least think, they deserve it. And then otherwise you shouldn't frame it as something that is so joyous and stuff like that.
Well, I kind of like that contrast.
But that tone is even worse in the end scene where, near the end, where you have all these people on different locations on Earth.
Oh yeah,
starting
going
to mirror
at each other. Yeah.
There you also have like the disco sound of what you hear in his celebrations.
You don't like that contrast?
No,
because I've always found that really interesting. It's like when now let me try and remember if this is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
There's certain movies I remember watching. Yeah, when you see action scenes, like big action scenes played out to slow, sad music.
Yeah.
That I find really intense.
Right.
And this also feels really intense because you have this super contrast of basically happy music with absolutely horrible human deeds.
Yeah.
And for
the
some
contrast
reason,
is good. It's interesting.
What it does for me is it makes me realize what's happening more. If that makes sense. So, for example, when you have in a big action movie, you have a slow, sad piece of music, and something massive is happening next. Some massive explosion is happening. I feel like you focus so much more on that explosion because you're not expecting that sound to go with it. It gives you a different emotion. Yeah. And this one feels similar. That you have this kind of the fact that you have this happy music. Your skin is kind of crawling. Because you're like, this is not how it should be, but I don't find it a bad thing. You're kind of going, no, that you're like.
I can sort of understand that if you're still sort of consciously, maybe not even consciously, but still going like, this shouldn't be here. That, but it also seems like things that you associate with positivity, like happy music, are supposed to sort of get you over the line. Like, this is cool to watch, isn't it?
That's true.
That's a feeling it, brings across.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting idea because you also one thing I would worry about kind of like watching it if you I know what I feel, right, but you kind of worry, there is a worry about like, does this glorify violence?
Yeah.
You're associating happy clappy music, positive vibes with horrendous violence.
Yeah.
Especially that church scene is just. I remember the first time I saw it, my mouth was like wide open. I was like, "What? What?
Yeah.
Like, just what?
How did this fucking happen?"
Yeah. Like when did that? Like what? Literally, a switch goes off, and then he just murders the whole church.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, and it is probably the most violent part. You see the most blood in that particular moment.
Yeah.
And you hear this happy music, and
but still, it should be way redder afterwards than it is. But still,
it's by in comparison to the rest of the movie, like it's you do see some blood coming out of people, but I like from my perspective, I enjoyed it, but you do worry a bit, like teenage boys watching it.
Yeah. Does
it glorify things it shouldn't?
Yeah.
Which I think is something that you should be aware of, especially the director.
It's very cartoon violence. And,
it is cartoon violence,
and not sloppy violence like it is when it's real.
Yeah, no, I mean, like if it had been real, like he would be walking out basically in a soup, at that rate. So I do understand where you're coming from. I personally, from a storytelling perspective, really enjoy that contrast of music versus action.
I can get that.
That church scene, like, and also when he comes out, I think that's one of that was the moment that it really shocked me, is when Samuel L. Jackson, which is a perfect parody of any Bond movie. Yeah. He's like, this is when I would tell you,
especially after they've had the conversation where they already sort of switch roles. Like, I thought it was Bond movies only as good as the villain.
Yeah, the Bond is only as good as the villain. Like, and I thought it was that kind of contrast.
I love that touch. That's also something that isn't in the book that's so good in the film that they just go for that, like, sort of an understanding of each other.
Yes, and also an understanding of the, I think, general parody. Like, there's a really good kind of, especially with the underlining kind of like Bond movie talk
nice
up
meta
through
commentary.
it. But when he kind of goes, this is the part where I'd usually tell you, we would talk, have a long elaborate excuse, and then you'd have a more elaborate way of getting out of it. And he goes, but this is not the movie, and he just shoots him. Yeah. And that was like, I remember kind of going there and going, that was not what it really shocked me. I was like, no way. I was like, that didn't, like, he's dead? Like, one of the main characters is dead? What's happened here? Because I feel like a lot of movies...
it does put up the stakes, so that gives the story way more tension than it had before that.
Yeah, and also like a lot of movies that I've watched, at least, I feel like they're kind of predictable.
Yeah.
Like you feel the tension building, and something is going to happen, and then someone dies, and then this that sparks the second set of it, the second half. But this one, there wasn't tension before it. Like before that, even when he came out of the church, I was not thinking he was in trouble.
Yeah.
Because of spy movies, they're never in trouble. Like, we don't die in spy movies.
Yeah.
Well, like, not the hero, as per se. And so that was really nice, because that was like not what I was expecting at all.
But then the line comes back in the end when Eggsy shoots him. Now has thrown that knife,
that knife leg thing.
Yeah, exactly. Into Valentine, he vomits because he can't stand blood.
That's one fabulous idea of a villain, is like a villain who just can't deal with blood.
Yeah, but he mentioned it in one of the very first scenes, that if he sees blood, then he will projectile vomit, and I thought, that's going to come back.
Yeah, and it did.
And so then he falls down, and then he goes, normally the spy now has a snarky remark.
Yeah, the pun.
Yeah, pun.
Yeah, you're supposed to get what kind of pun are you going to say? He's like, it's not that kind of movie.
Yeah.
But especially with the idea that Samuel L. Jackson, so his villain doesn't like blood, feels very much like a Bond villain.
Yeah.
Because if you look at like Fleming's villains, they're all one of the things he does, especially in the books, his descriptions of them are grotesque.
Yeah.
Like they stand out because they're like you can't even really think that they're borderline no longer human.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of the time they have these very weird traits. Yeah. Which, I mean, Odd Job is a great idea of it. Like, he's been working so hard that he has this, basically his hands are covered in corn. So, with super strong skin. Yeah. And he can break just a beam of a staircase, as he does just with his hands and stuff. And his feet are the same. But his bottom lip has been cut off, so he can't speak normally. Right. So they're very, and he's not even the main villain. No, right. But he makes them very kind of monstrous. But then the things he chooses, that's monstrous in physique. Yeah. But the things he chooses that are kind of make them villains are really odd. Yeah. And I feel like one of the things, them having chosen that, he sees blood and he pukes, felt like a very odd thing, and it felt like a very Fleming villain. Yeah.
But it's also a bit of a subversion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
You asked me for about an improvement about that church scene.
Oh, yes, go on.
I do have to do more improvements, because that is also part of the podcast.
Dun, 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 dun.
Improvementazio.
So I have one especially, and that is that I would have made it more of a parody, gone all the way. And especially with the character of Harry Hart, I think there would have been more. He just seems just a regular James Bond type character. He's a bit more liberal-minded. He is all for the social mobility and stuff like that. But is he really? Because it's just through connections. There's not really an anti-establishment thing in there, because it's still, if you're connected, then you can rise up. But all the other people have no chance in hell to become a Kingsman. But that's a different thing. The thing that I would want to see is that, yes, he is that idea of a James Bond type spy, but that could also be a very troubling image. Being the way he uses sex and stuff like that. I think it would have been way more effective if he was a way more troubling character than he is now.
We're still talking about Harry Hart here, right?
Yeah, Harry Hart.
So what do you mean, how he uses sex, for example?
Well,
I'm trying to get into my head what you're thinking of.
Well, it's not that clear in the film, maybe, but they do get trained in persuasion tactics and using sex to get people on board. And he doesn't use that in the film as such, but he is part of that system that uses that. But it might have been more fun, for me at least, if he has a very troubled relationship to sex because of that. He's had to use that so much that normal things don't turn him on anymore.
This didn't come across at all to me in the movie, I must say.
No?
No, I thought he felt exceedingly asexual to me. Like, he really didn't feel like he was, like, interested in women or men or anything. Like, he felt distinctly asexual.
That is true. But then he's a very chastised version of James Bond.
Like, James Bond is literally sex on legs.
Yeah.
It's sex, guns, and gadgets kind of thing.
But it would have been interesting if he was like a warning sign for Eggsy, who is more of that. He is sex on legs in the end.
He's a bit more
like a warning sign of it could go this way if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And I think that touches like that, and also with violence, like maybe going to violence a bit too quickly to solve a situation. He's clearly a clever guy. He can remain a clever guy. Mm-hmm. But also, like he has the bar fight. He uses violence where...
Kind of like showing off.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need to do that. But now it's done in a way where you sort of admire, oh, he's cool because he kicked those guys' asses. But
True.
he could have gone a bit too far using violence and accidentally killed one of those guys. And that would have made it a bit more interesting, I think. Especially in a parody sense. And it would have given more danger to the spy lifestyle.
I think it's kind of interesting, like what you're saying about Harry Hart in particular, because I feel like the whole movie is a very subtle parody. Yeah. Like, it's a parody. He's
clearly a very big hero figure within the film.
Yeah. But the humor is kind of subtle. It's references to other movies. Like, it makes it a funny spy movie more than it is a parody. Yeah. And I think if it had been a parody, I don't think it would have stacked up to other spy parodies. So I like the fact that it's actually, like, it's a spy movie with a parody element to it.
Right.
I'm really wondering about the idea of Harry Hart being kind of a more James Bond-like, basically. Yeah. You know, it's more like... Harry Hart felt to me a bit how you think James Bond is before you watch a James Bond movie. And then you realise he's basically just he's basically just a womanizer, an alcoholic womanizer. Yeah. And I had always assumed that James Bond would be this kind of Harry Hart kind of style. Borderline, you think for some reason kind of asexual. Yeah. Very polite, a gentleman. Thinking of gadgets and how to save the world and stuff, rather than booze and girls. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of an interesting... I did think the contrast was interesting between Eggsy and Harry. Right. Harry being this more matured, like, not telling Eggsy anything about his life, really. Yeah. Like, if you notice, he more or less becomes a Kingsman and never finds out what happened to his dad. Yeah. That's one of the things that also is never spoken about.
No, exactly.
It probably would have made it more... I mean, it would have made the storyline more interesting, perhaps, if he had killed someone, or the character more deep. Yeah. But I kind of felt like he was really just there to kind of frame Eggsy and see where, like, how Eggsy might compare to Harry, rather than being... He wasn't a super strong character on his own, but I did enjoy him in it, also because I thought he was very funny. Yeah, it is. So, okay, interesting suggested improvements, I must say.
But not necessary for you.
For me, no, I don't think so. No. I think I see where you're coming from. I think what you're looking for, like what I was looking for...
I would have liked to be more subversive. But it undercuts every bit of subversiveness in the training afterwards. So, someone could actually die. You have to sign a body bag and a girl drowns. And then afterwards, she works for the tech department. Do you really think we would drown someone? You have to shoot the dog. Oh, it's just blanks.
The blanks one I was okay with, but the girl not dying... Yeah. That one kind of did feel like it undermined it a bit.
Yeah, especially that's the one that was worst for me.
Yeah, I agree. It was for me as well.
The parachutes, at least, that I liked the punchline with Merlin. Then doing that with him. Do you think I'm expendable? And then.
Yeah, that was a good like learning lesson too. It was like don't talk out of your mouth until you know the full scenario.
Yeah, but then there's still the point of why would you say that and risk people actually dying there? Yeah, because. Yeah, what then is the point of not pulling that last one? Or should he just have tried it? Should everyone just have tried it, and then everyone lands, and then it's just about not trusting all the information you get? But then it's also about you would start mistrusting your superiors. So what would be the lesson from that?
That's true.
It's a confusing message if you start to think about it.
Yeah, no, if you
Within the
delve
scene,
into it.
it's a very good punchline.
Yeah, the parachute one is very
Yeah.
good. The parachute one I was okay with. The dog one I was also okay with. Again, I thought it was like, you know, you're learning the. Like, at the end of the day, they are a training academy, right? They're a school of some form, so they have to have this idea. If someone actually died, it probably would be quite.
Yeah.
But for some reason, like that moment when it seemed that the girl had drowned.
Yeah.
You were like, oh wow, this is like, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, and
It's
that
real
felt
risky.
more. It's a real risk that they're doing something real. And that one, when it was undermined, I thought was a shame. I remember watching this morning, going, like, like, so you know, it's all fake, and then you go into a massive battle to end it. That was a bit of a shame.
One of the things that they didn't do for the film, but that would have been so fucking weird.
Okay. You mean other than the 19 minutes of sex which happened, of forced upon rape? Because all rape is not forced upon.
One of the things that's in the comic book that is in the film is that Gazelle was a guy in the comic book, but they changed sex. But maybe they wouldn't have done that. And then one of the characters, one of the people they might have gotten to play Gazelle was Oscar Pistorius.
Wait, before he was arrested or after he was arrested?
Before, but he pulled out because he thought that he couldn't play a killer.
Oh.
And in the film,
that's
Gazelle
unfortunate.
shoots someone through a door.
Well, she does, doesn't she?
Yeah.
How did? Well, there's like some weird shit going on there.
That's some weird shit, isn't it?
That is some like foresight.
Yeah.
That's like, I did not know this.
This is something like the Terminator.
Yeah.
In the Terminator, they wanted to cast O.J. Simpson as the Terminator, but they didn't do it because they thought he was too nice a guy and they could never convincingly play a killer. And that is so bad. Considering how it went with his court
I may
case
never
and stuff
sleep
like that.
again. This is, I don't see a way around it. Oh my god. Oh, do you imagine Oscar Pistorius as Gazelle?
Yeah.
Suddenly that changed it. Like, I want to watch it again just to imagine him in the position of it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Ah! Yeah, my mind has been blown.
Yeah.
For both of those.
Yeah. Right.
You know too many random facts.
Let's move on to the 3 movie suggestions.
I've had so much trouble picking the 3 movies.
Right.
I've had like 3 in my head, and then I've wrote 2 down, and I crossed 1 off, and then I kept 1.
Tip 1!
So the one that I had no doubt in choosing, which is the one that is still currently written on my piece of paper, is Saving Mr. Banks.
Right.
It is the most wonderful story. Yeah. I don't know how any one character can make you feel so torn about things. Mm-hmm. So it's the story of, I don't know if I'm supposed to give a brief recap, but basically it's the tale of...
It's always good to say what it's about.
Yeah, so it's the tale of... It's called Saving Mr. Banks, and it's the tale of the author of Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Who...
Travis is her name, right?
I can't remember her name, unfortunately. I've watched it a couple of times. Unfortunately, I don't remember her name. Played in this case by Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
And Walt Disney wants to buy the rights to Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Played by Tom Hanks. And basically the whole story is about how the author is the one thing she wants least in the world is it for it to be a musical. She doesn't want songs in it.
Yeah.
And she's borderline autistic. She's really held on to this character.
Yeah.
And
it's
Disney is doing everything he can to sway her.
Yeah.
She doesn't want cartoons and she doesn't want music, which is basically everything Disney had done to that point.
Yeah.
And it's the story of how Disney tries its best to convince her and what the compromise is at the end. Yeah. But it is a wonderful story and she is such an endearing character. Mm-hmm. You simultaneously... You feel for her immensely. Like, you really feel for her. And you also kind of like, come on, girl, like, you can do this. Yeah. It is one of the most beautiful stories, and it's beautifully filmed, and both Tom Hanks and Emma Thompson are fantastic in it. Cool. I highly recommend it. It is my go-to movie to recommend to anyone.
Tip 2!
Another one which I has been on my mind all day and it's not leaving, so I think I'm going to recommend that one, is Hidden Figures.
Right.
Have you seen Hidden Figures?
Of course I've seen
It's
Hidden Figures.
that I also find is a great story.
Yeah.
I love the acting of it. So Hidden Figures is the story of the 3 NASA computers. When computers back in the day were women, they weren't allowed to be astronauts themselves or to work in any of the jobs that they were restricted to being computers. And they're 3 black women in a white man's world, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
And the story of these 3 women basically, gets the guys to the moon, and how they are kind of unrewarded for it.
Yeah.
And this movie is, to a certain extent, I think, a commemoration of their lives.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a fabulous story.
I thought going into that film, like, this is going to be all right, but it's probably going to be a bit soppy, and we'll see if I'm going to like it. And I enjoyed it so much.
They're feisty women.
Tip 3!
I went for one of an animation movie called Kubo and the Two Strings.
Ah, that's a terrific one.
Isn't it a fantastic
Yeah,
movie?
more people should watch it.
They should. I felt that it was not underrated, but it kind of got forgotten.
Yeah.
It was such a lovely
That's a
movie.
refreshing way of putting it, because loads of people say it's underrated, but just means that people haven't seen it.
Yeah, that just means that it hasn't been
Yeah.
seen or hasn't been talked about. But it just, it just hasn't been seen by enough people. It's I don't even think I can describe the story anymore. I don't know if you can. It's been a while since I saw it, but I remember I loved how it looked, and I thought the storytelling and the characters were fabulous.
A small Japanese boy being put on a quest.
Basically, that's basically the premise.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like either of our stories would do it justification.
No.
But it is a lovely story, and the characters and the relationships of the characters, and also the style of the movie is beautiful.
Yeah.
So that kind of made it onto my list as my number 3.
And so we fought and we battled, yes, we beat each other up. Both of us tried hard and we both failed. Yes, I had you by the thumbs, but neither of us won. Only the love for cinema prevailed.
And that was it. Thank you, Emma, for dropping by for a wonderful chat. In case listeners were wondering what you would think of the novel Goldfinger by Ian Fleming, she texted me a little review. She said, "Very disappointed. On the last page of the book, Pussy Galore turns into a child girl and Bond convinces her to have sex. I thought there was a slight hope there might be an ounce of equality. Nope. Sexism doesn't change with Fleming." So that settles it. Again, I recommend you listen to her podcast, The Suitcase, now on YouTube. Another recommendation by me personally would be the film that I most enjoyed seeing last week, which is Point Blank, the 1967 classic with Lee Marvin in the lead, directed by John Boorman. Especially on the big screen, it was a hoot to see, but I had to see it in Antwerp. I don't think it'll be on the big screen anywhere near here very soon, so sorry for that, but still check out that film. Now, listeners, if you want to be notified of new English episodes of this podcast, you can send an email to the following address. Pen and paper ready, I will spell it out. DUIMPJEWORSTELEN That's DUIMPJWORSTELEN@gmail.com. And that's it. This has been a cinema production. It was hosted and edited by me, Ruud, de 20e eeuwse Vos. And all the jingles were by the genius, that is, Roy Grutters. You can find us on social media, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. And your hate mail you can send to doimpjeworst@gmail.com. And for now, a big old bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we have an enormous round of applause, please, for our host, who has once again succeeded in bringing to us a plethora of top-notch, cinematographically themed entertainment. We have had an absolute ball, have we not? Next time on Thumb Wrestling.
Luister, als je niet in film zit, kun je alles onderuit halen. Weet je, daar gaat het niet om. Zeker actiefilms.
Ja.
Dus, maar bijvoorbeeld die treinscène, dan... Los van dat één grote reclamefolder is. Dan pakt hij met zo'n kraan, pakt hij dan die achterkant van die treinwagon en dan blijft hij eraan hangen en weet ik wat. Dat je denkt, waarom is die Patrice nog in de buurt? Weet je? Waarom, dat duurt een kwartier. Ja, waarom is die niet al 3 keer pleiten en of aan het schieten? Weet je, dat is de andere kant, dat je denkt, hou het ook ineens op. En op het moment dat je dat soort dingen begint te denken, dan weet je dat je verkeerd zit, zeg maar.
This podcast employs a strict only like and subscribe if you really want to policy. Okay, bye.